What's your most, say, proudest accomplishment in your career? You've done a lot of different things.
Oh gosh, yeah.
If you had to pick, I guess, one thing in your career in particular that maybe you're proud of or you'd like to mention.
Yeah, that's interesting because people might ask me, "Hey, Corey, what do you do, or what have you done, or what's your job?" That's the first reach of a conversation, and a lot of times, and I'm often stopped by that because I've done a lot of interesting things in my life, but I think my first career and my first love would come through working with kids in care in youth treatment centers. So I did about 13 years working in a youth treatment center in Edmonton called Alberta Bosco Homes, where it was a ranch setting.
You're from Alberta originally,
Edmonton,
right?
Edmonton, Alberta, yeah. So that was my first, I guess you could say, real job. Every job is real, and every job has purpose, and there's dignity to be found in any line of work that you do.
Right, yeah.
But that one, at the age of 19, I had volunteered to coach a little youth wrestling team, youth teenagers that were based out of this treatment center. And it was through 6 degrees of separation. There was a gentleman that was working at this center as a clinical director who knew a friend of mine. And then I get this ask one day, "Hey, Corey, do you want to coach, young offenders in the sport of Olympic wrestling?" And here I'm about 19. I'm on the junior national team at the time, working in my gym. My club was based only about maybe 25-minute drive from where this facility was located, just outside of the city of Edmonton, about 60 kilometers. And so I said, "Sure, but do I have to go there? Are they allowed out?" Or, well, you have to come to the facility, right? And I'm like, "Well, how are we going to get wrestling mats and all this sort of stuff there? Do you have the equipment?" Which they didn't have. So we made a special arrangement to bring them to my facility. So as soon as our practices were over, 10 kids, or as many kids that could, or youth between the ages of about 14 to 17, and between 10 and 15, no more than 15, because there was only so many you can fit in the vans there, I guess. And, and it had to be on certain behavioral levels, which I didn't know at the time, but
makes sense.
Yeah,
you don't want
and then they would come, equipped with staff. So if there was 10 kids, there'd be 5 staff. And sometimes less, sometimes maybe even more, depending on the circumstance of the individuals that I was kind of in care of on the mats. And so they made that, that special arrangement. And so one day a week, they would show up to my wrestling room and I would coach them. And it was interesting because I was not much older than them.
Right.
They may have experienced life differently than me at that point in their life, being kids in care, at-risk youth, behavioral, all the things that you may see in a struggle of a young person who may have not had the privileges that other people may have had being raised. Mm-hmm. And so you had it all. And so here I find myself coaching these kids. And I loved it. And what I loved about it is I knew wrestling. Being my background, I started when I was about 11 years old. I was raised through the sport with some really good mentors, some good coaches. Met a lot of my friendship circles came out of the sport of wrestling. And I was very fortunate to have, a really positive experience with the leadership and moving me along in wrestling.
Sure.
And so by the time I was 19, that was my need. That was it. That I wasn't doing any other thing except for wrestling as a sport, in a sense. So here I am. And at the time, I was working as a bartender, right, to make ends meet on the side, but still wrestling. And so here I find myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm with these young people, and they comes with some certain challenges to keep them focused. But wrestling was so structured in a way, and I was so comfortable understanding how to structure it. I just felt anybody could do it.
Right? Yeah.
And the irony of it too is you have some young people that don't necessarily know how to direct their anger,
right,
in ways that are positive. And if you throw the physical aspect of wrestling in that could be a recipe for disaster. So, but it wasn't. It actually became a really cool relationship building process with these young people. And me being 19, some of these kids are 17, 16, and very similar ages as me. And it was successful right away. And I enjoyed every week that they would show up. And when we built that relationship, and trust. It took some time, right?
Of course,
there was some bravado that we had to push through, and some, listening to directions and being, because it's not easy. The wrestling mat and in that environment isn't easy for anybody. And it could be overwhelming if you don't know what you're doing. But if structured well, I think you can build a pathway of falling in love with something, even if it is hard. And with a little affirmation and encouragement, and we just all kind of helped each other, because I'm learning in the process too how I can lead these young. These
well, you're
people.
quite young too.
Yeah, like I felt like a minnow in a shark's pond, and a lot of, like, I had a lot of insecurities, like,
of course,
because
19. I mean, you'd have to at that age, coaching people, especially inmates who, I don't know. These were mild offenders, obviously.
I wouldn't say mild. Alberta Bosco Homes was considered a facility. They often referred to it as the last resort.
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
So they've melted out, group homes.
Yeah.
I guess you can consider it in the family of group homes, but with a group home, there might not be as much treatment at it. We had clinical directors on site,
sure.
Those sort of things. Other medical professionals that at reach. Their school system was there, so built underneath each of their homes. It was log cabin style, 10 kids per home, and staffed fully. Locked doors through magnets, not always locked, but pretty secure. Right. 60 kilometers outside of the city of Edmonton, so if there was any sort of runaway, it'd be very hard to get into the city, although they were resourceful at times. And, and which was good, because that resourcefulness transferred into the coaching of the mat and them learning how to wrestle. And so, going long story longer, in your original question, what was one of my most proudest accomplishments would probably be that. I have many, but that one would be the grassroots of where I really felt I was able to really accomplish something and see really good results. I still keep it. This would have been let's go back 1993, and I still keep in touch with some of those youth today. Yeah, and some of them went on to do well in wrestling, to make it to national programs, to win provincial and national medals, and do well. Not all of them, but at least the ones that came through that. I did that for probably about 2 years. And then after about 2 years of just volunteering my time to do that, they offered me a job.
Wow.
Right?
Awesome.
And I got no background in this. I don't have any education in this. I don't have any early childhood. It was different back then in the education in terms of what you would need for that. But they said, we'll support you. And even then they had it was a really cool place. They had schooled programs there. So you could actually, and they could fund you through it and train you and go, it's all right into the practical and theoretical knowledge base of doing it. But really at the end of the day, you can learn all you want in a book on how to, deal with that type of employment. But it's the doing, it's either getting in there and then. So I worked there 13 years and loved it.
Wow.
Loved it. And I just felt natural. And I was able to somewhat be myself. I grew up in there. Yeah. Myself. Sure. I saw a different part of of how the world may be put upon others.
Sure. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Did you have any, when you were first approached with this position, did you have any reservation about it because maybe they're inmates? Did you feel maybe a little judgmental? Because you're 19. I was just thinking when I was 19, I was a knucklehead. I had very, very judgmental about people when they did anything wrong. And obviously now I look at it more as, people are just people. Things are really complicated. Some people aren't as fortunate as others. And people are motivated by sometimes very different things that you can't see. You certainly can't see all ends. So I'm just kind of curious, did you... How did your views on people as a whole, maybe particularly inmates, but it's a great example because most of us have done something wrong, right? You might not be an inmate, you might not have gotten punishment for it, but certainly morally. So there's a natural level of, I would say, forgiveness that's required to to be involved in something like that? I don't know. Did you because you said you noticed some changes in yourself? Was that sort of part of what you noticed?
Yeah, not at the beginning, because I didn't really have I didn't have any kind of harsh judgments. I knew that they were offenders in some way. Didn't know their stories though, because that wouldn't have been divulged to me as a non-staff, as a volunteer. I'm just getting these young people. I know their names. I know a little bit about what they might tell me, but they're not getting personal with me. Even through those 2 years, there was a lot of walls up there. They'd come in and learn how to wrestle. So when I was offered the position, I had fear.
Yeah.
Right. I had more fear because I guess my first judgment would have been, these are tough kids.
Yes.
These are tough, street. I knew that they did crimes. I knew that they've been in jail, the Young Offender Center, and most of them have been through there, right? And gangs, that sort of thing. They've had. I knew that they had drug and alcohol abuse in their families. I know that they may have been abused by their own families. I didn't even know if they even had families. Some of them, And but so when I was offered the position, it was actually first was excitement.
Of
and
course.
I'm going to get a job. That's kind of cool.
Jobs are nice. Yeah.
And I didn't have to apply. The guy's asking me, "Hey, would you consider doing this?" I said, "I would," and I was always open. And and then I felt, because I know these guys now because it's been a while, and it should be easy.
Yeah.
What's to know, right? Then you get him in my environment. Easy. I understood how to structure a wrestling room. I understood how to garnish respect in a wrestling room, how to teach respect and how to respect one another in a sporting environment. That came very natural to me because that's how I came up. So I learned that way. Let's move it on to this group, the way I learned. And I believed I learned well. Like I mentioned, I had some really good mentors that could have brought me through how to deal with that. And so I thought, my first thought was, this will be easy. I'll just go to their house and apply whatever structure they asked me to apply, right? And then you're in their environment, and then it's like, okay, all those niceties went out the window. It's no more Coach Corey's working here now.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's judgment on me. Now I'm all of a sudden against them. So then there's this whole new relationship building process that's had to start, where I had to learn the real depths of where some of their brokenness and pains were coming from, in order to help treat that. I'm no doctor, but to help work with that.
Sure.
And to hopefully the end goal. It was about an 18-month to 3-year stay there, depending on the age of the youth.
Yeah.
I've seen youth go in there is in and out in 2-3 months to 18 months, right, and sometimes longer.
Wow.
And so you can just imagine and staff turnover in a field like that is high. They'd see new faces of staff all the time, so trust was a huge deal. So after the first couple of years when I was working there pretty much full time, and then they would really good organization. They supported my sports, and they gave me all the opportunities to train and travel and those sort of things. It was really awesome, actually, and very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Which makes my memories even fonder of that organization.
Yeah, sure.
And so they were able. So I'm in this environment there, and learning. I learned how their personhood, which helped me to kind of understand my own personhood.
Yes, yeah. Well, we're all mirrors to each other, right? Whenever you meet, especially when you have a connection or you're mentoring or you're coaching, something like that. I think it was Carl Jung, he said, what you hate in someone else is normally something that you hate in yourself. And you're mirroring that hatred on something that you don't like about yourself onto someone else. That's a very interesting idea.